So the next thing I want to do is take off these cams. This is the tightening order for the bolts. So we're going to go in the reverse order of that. So if we're looking at, let's say the intake first, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then it's 9, 10 and 11. But then they give the ones for this. So if you're just taking this one off, you do your 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you do 9, 10 and 11. So I'm going to do the intake one first, and then this end one, and then just do those ones. Now obviously because I'm undoing this, we're going to go in the reverse order. So I'm going to be starting at 11 and going backwards. So we'll sit that there. So starting at a number 11 over here, I'm just going to crack them all loose first. 11, 10, 9, 2, 8, and number 1. Just make sure they're loose. Yep, they're definitely loose. We'll go 8, 3, 7, 2, and 1. Now with the tension off them, I'm just going to zip them out really quick. I'm still going to follow the same order just because I can. 3, 2, and 1. Now these probably are numbered. Let me have a look what we got here, but sometimes it's a bit hard to see the number. So that looks like it's a 3, maybe. A 3 and a B. But what I do is just keep them in order. So lay them out somewhere where you're not going to lose the order of them. So there's my ones for my intake. And if I try and have a look at the numbers, I really can't see, but we'll clean them up, but definitely keep them in order. On the intake again, just because it's a bit grungy in here, I really can't see the numbers on them clearly. So we'll just keep them in order and not have an issue. Now that they're removed, I'm going to take the camshaft sprockets off. So they're unbolted, but they do sit on fairly tight. So be careful, you don't want to just lever them off. You're likely to cause damage. Also remember the timing chain has a little bit of looseness here, so really we want to kind of pop the cam gears off and then you'll be able to move them together and unhook them from the links of the chain. See if we can just give it a bit of a wiggle, see if we can get it out, and we'll wiggle this one out as well. Okay, now we've dropped the tension completely off this chain and I've unhooked it. On any other car, I would be super concerned about the other end of the timing chain where it goes around a sprocket down there, that it's going to be moving on its links and throwing my timing out later on. But they say here, chain tension holding work is not necessary. Crankshaft sprocket and timing chain do not disconnect structurally while the front cover is attached. So we still have the front cover attached. So what that's saying to me is that the timing chain on that bottom cog won't come off the cog. So that means that as long as we don't rotate things around, we're not going to have an issue. So essentially how it looks like in there, you've got the bottom pulley and then the timing chain goes around it, and then there's sort of like a cover that sits really close. And it just means that that timing chain won't drop off and move its links. So let's wiggle these out of the way. I want to be careful too not to rub off any of my marks. Now with sprockets gone, the next thing is we want to undo this small section that fits in here, and it's all been siliconed in. So we'll get these 3 bolts out of here. So in addition to these 3 big bolts that came down into here that secured this little section on, there's 2 bolts that are just sneakily hidden up in here. They're both a 10mm bolt. Careful with these ones because these ones would have the potential of dropping down into where your timing chain's sitting. So You might want to put a cloth or something over there if you're likely to drop it. So there's a little bit of a sort of a groove in here. I'm going to see if I can just lever that open, and you can see it's starting to break the seal. Just popping that out. There's that cover. Now that is just literally held in with the silicone and the couple of bolts. And again, looking at this, look, that's nice, neat factory silicone. No one else has been in here. With this end cam cap now removed, we can take the cams out. Sometimes they're a little bit stiff in there, so you just got to give them just a little bit of a wiggle. And we can pop them out. Obviously you don't want to be rotating them or causing issues. So we've got the intake and the exhaust. Again, I'll just give it a little nudge, that's it. You can get it out. And before I go too much further with this, it's good just to have a look at these cam journals. Just looking for any excessive wear or anything like that. Look, it's not something I'm expecting with this car, but looking at those, it's used, but it doesn't appear to be a big issue. Now we do want to keep these bucket tappets in this correct order. They are all a different thickness. They've got like a different shim in there. I'm not going to be, hopefully I'm not going to be resurfacing the valves and needing to adjust the valve clearance. So I should be able to put these back in the exact order and not have any issues. So make yourself up some sort of a little container or a way that you're going to keep them. Now to get them out, just a little magnet is the easiest way. And just find a nice way to keep them in order. So look, I'm just keeping mine in a bit of a box here. Obviously that's the timing chain, my intake and my exhaust ones. So I'll just line them up along there, line them up there, and that way I can just put them back in the right order. And my last two. So now the cams are out of the way, we've got a couple more sneaky bolts that are kind of hidden in here that secure this cover to the head. Now, much like the cam cap here that had a couple of bolts going into it, you want to be careful with these bolts. You don't want to drop them, otherwise they could fall potentially down into the engine. There are a couple of 10 mils. We've got this one here that's actually on the outside. Still don't want to drop it, but less of a problem if we do. We've got this one here again, it sits on the outside of the housing. Okay, so this one that comes out of here, it's quite a long one. It's in that back corner. Another little sneaky one up in here. There's a super sneaky one. It's up inside here. Now it's almost impossible to see, but they like to hide them in. Now it's a bit hard to fully get this one out, but I believe I've undone it all the way. There we go, I've just grabbed it. So it's that sneaky one in there, don't forget it. Dropped it. It's that one that's inside that hole. Now while we're undoing these bolts here, I might just undo the bolts for the tensioner, and that way I can show you a better glimpse of what was going on there. And also it looks like the tensioner is attached to the cylinder head anyway, so it might actually be a bit easier to get it out with the tensioner gone. So I just want to be careful that the tensioner doesn't fall in any way that I don't want it to. Grab that and pull that out. There's our tensioner. Just wipe some of the oil off. That looks like a small O-ring in there. We'll replace that one. But you can see here, this is the plunger. Push that right in. And then this, if I can just hold that plunger in, I don't want it to slip. goes through into that groove and into the other side, and that can hold that plunger shut. If we don't do that, what happens is, let's take this right apart. We just have a big plunger and a spring, and it's likely that you're going to lose that down in there. Okay, let's talk head bolts. It's either going to be an E20 Torx socket, or it's going to be a 6-point hex 10 mil. If it's this type of bolt, one of the issues you have is when you go to put it in, the heads of the bolts are usually filled with oil and crud, and you don't end up pushing that in far enough, and it's really easy to strip out the top of the bolt. If it's the Torx fitting or the Torx head on it, it's much easier. Now this particular one has the Torx, so that's what I'm using, but if you're using these ones, and you have those bolts fitted, make sure that you've fully pushed it in, or you might even want to clean out the bolt holes before you try to undo the bolts. Now I've got myself a little cheat sheet here. So this is the tightening sequence. So we've got the intake and the exhaust side there, my little cam gears, just so I don't mess it up. So I'm going to be going in the reverse of this. Now I want to do it in a few stages. I don't want to just do it all at once. So we just want to crack them loose a little bit, and then just keep going, working my way around. So we're going to start at number 10 and we'll just crack it loose. Now I've got a breaker bar and I've got a small extension, and I can tell you they are pretty tight. Actually, they're very tight. It's number 10 just broken loose. We'll go over here, number 9. You just want to position yourself on a pretty good angle so that you can easily do these, because they are tight. That's 9. Now 8's back over here. You want to get your muscles on for this. You'll love that sound. It's 8. Now I've just zoomed out a little bit because I actually just want to have a little look at how much my breaker bar bends. It feels like it's bending, and I'll watch my own footage. I feel like I'm getting a lot of movement in here. That's number 1. Now that I've cracked the tension on them, it should be a bit easier just with a normal size ratchet. So just going to go and pretty well loosen these off now. That's 10. Nine, and literally within a few degrees of turning, I can feel that the pressure is completely released. 9, duck over to 8, 2, and 1. Now I'm just going to zip these out. We've got no tension, so I'm not concerned about the order anymore. So they're the bolts and the head that these ones have. Now these are a throwaway bolt, of course, but we throw nothing away until we've got all our replacement parts, because we like to compare. There is a way to measure these, and the manual gives you a method to do that. Look, I'm just going to use new bolts, they're cheap.